Hello and welcome back to another episode of Starmageddon, the TLDR News podcast that should probably, for this episode, be called Tory Dramageddon.
Very good.
Because there's less drama and more Tory conference content. Because that has been where you two have been over the weekend. I don't know whether to acknowledge that this is the second attempt at recording this.
Well, you've just done it now.
That was the acknowledgement. If that stays in, then people will know. If not, they won't know. Anyway, before we get started, I'm going to urge you all to buy the next edition or subscribe to future editions of our magazine, Too Long. The next edition comes out in December and it's all about the world's elections that have happened over the course of 2024, because there have been a lot, including the Tory leadership election, which will feature in the magazine. So if you're interested in what we talk about today, you should get the magazine to read about it. And if you use the code podcast, you can get 1% off, but more importantly, it will let us know that you bought the magazine because you found out about it through the podcast, which supports the podcast, lets us keep doing it. And we want to keep doing it because it's fun. Yeah. And hopefully you enjoy it too. You can go to toolong.news to buy it, and the code and the link will be in the description. So, Tory conference. Thank you very much. I'm a professional at this point.
So smooth.
Yeah. How was the Tory conference? Open-ended question.
Yeah, I think it was definitely different to the Labour one, and I think in some fairly key ways. I think at least the first day was a lot more subdued. I think there were fewer people there, and I think there were sort of two things that build into this. I think the structure of the parties and the way the parties are set up, I suppose, are very different. The Labour Party has a much wider, much larger membership, generally younger as well. Yeah. So a bit more like active, I suppose. Whereas the Conservatives are a bit older and quite a lot smaller. But also like the position the current parties are in, right? Like Labour has just won a massive majority. The Conservatives have lost one. It's a bit, it's the vibes are always going to be different as a result of those. Now, I've only been to the Conservative conference, my first Conservative conference. So it's hard to compare it to previous years and whether, it's more to do with the differences in the party structures or whether it's more to do with the current situation that the parties are in. I think both inevitably factor, but the vibe was remarkably different between the two conferences.
The word we kept using to describe it was subdued. Definitely when we got there on the Sunday, when things were first starting to kind of fall into place, there was a very quiet kind of hush-hush atmosphere. Everyone kind of not wanting to give too much away about which candidate they wanted to support because no one wants to be seen to back a loser. And it was very kind of, people keeping very tight-lipped. Things did pick up a bit from the Monday. So there was more of a buzz on the Monday evening, more talks happening and people queuing up to get into big, sessions with, I don't know, Michael Gove or whoever, big figures from the Conservative Party. But there was a notable sense that this was all a bit kind of uncertain and all a bit hush hush.
One thing I forgot to say at the start that I'll just throw in now to keep people interested. We're going to review some of the candidates' merch in the second half of this episode. So stick around for that. It's very good. Well, I think it'll be very good because I haven't seen it yet. So we'll see. Anyway, one thing I was thinking about before the conference, and I should say I didn't go, so you have to enlighten me on this, but I imagine there might be a chance that the Conservative conference might feel more free and possibly a bit more upbeat than the Labour one, because Labour now have the task of running the country in very difficult times, and the Conservatives have shifted that responsibility over to them. Was there that sense that the Conservatives are like, we can step back and refocus and sort of enjoy ourselves, or not really?
Definitely not as much as I expected. Yeah. Like, I also thought it would feel, these are party conferences at the end of the day. It's a massive gathering of all the MPs, everyone who supports the party, people who just want to come and meet the people they've been voting for generations or whatever. So I also thought there would be more of a sense of like, we're all just here to see each other and it's nice and we're still still a party together and we still believe in the same politics and things, but there really wasn't that sense. It was very much overshadowed by this weird kind of uncertainty about the current state of the party and where the party is heading, of course, now that we have this upcoming leadership election. And all of it kind of revolved around this, around this leadership election. As soon as we walked into the international conference centre where it was being held in Birmingham, we saw these 4 massive, almost floor-to-ceiling banners taking up a massive proportion of the room, almost Hunger Games style, you know, with massive faces of the what are they called in the Hunger Games? The tributes, yeah. The 4 tributes. Who are you supporting? You know, with their names and their slogans. And it was, as I mentioned before, everyone was keeping very, very quiet about things. And there wasn't really a sense of like jubilance or celebration. There was still a buzz, but it was very muted in comparison to even what I was expecting, I think, from the Tory party conference.
Yeah. Ben mentioned earlier about the membership being very different to Labour's membership, and that can make the conference feel different. I saw a tweet, so I don't know how true it is, but it said that it felt like the conference was something like 80 to 90% male attendees. Is that true? Yeah, I
can attest to that. I actually hadn't fully registered that until you mentioned it just now, but it was definitely the case. And as soon as I came through because you've got to go through this big security tent to get into the conference centre at all. And I remember walking straight through, we were greeted by, again, another young fan, which was nice to see. Only one this time. But it was good to know that we're appealing on all sides. And he was a young boy, and then there was basically just a load of men in tweed suits. I've never seen so much tweed in my life as well. That's another observation from this conference. But a lot of suits, a lot of kind of businessmen, people carrying umbrellas and looking very official. And I think what I also noticed, just one extra point is, again, flicking through the fringe programme of events that were taking place during the conference, I was struck by how there were a few that were, conversations geared around how do we get women interested in the Conservative Party again? How can we repair our relations with young women? Why are we losing women's votes or whatever? So clearly, even within the party, this is a debate that's happening. I
would say as well that there was, it's interesting you mentioned like men in suits and everything. Even the way that people were dressed for the 2 conferences was so different. There was as you said, there were so many more people wearing like suits, ties done up, umbrellas, like very, very formal, I suppose. And there was a bit of that at the Labour conference, but it felt a lot more casual. And again, I think a lot of this just does come back to they're 2 very different parties with 2 very, very different memberships. And obviously you're going to see that on display. And I think the other effect of this is at Labour, it's obviously a big part of it is the sort of democratic element of the party, and there's a lot of like meetings and votes and all of that. But I suppose the other part of that, and I mentioned this, in the podcast last week, is like it is a group of people who are all around the country and they're all in one city together for a week. And obviously as a part of that, there is a lot of parties. Dawn Butler's Jamaican night, for instance, which took place. And the Conservative conference didn't get a sense of that at all. Like there were so many times where we were at Labour and people would be like, we're going to the New Statesman drinks, or we're doing, this, that and the other. At the Conservative conference, that wasn't as much the case. And I think a big part of that, again, is just that the membership, demographics are so different. Yeah. They're just so different. And that is so on display at conference.
Yeah. The other sort of the main strange thing about the Tory party conference is that the current party leader, Rishi Sunak, is on his way out. His big speech wasn't really the main event, was it?
No, it was really short.
I didn't know that it even happened.
And it was barely covered, and it was basically just him saying thank you to people. Yeah. And that makes sense. I mean, the argument made originally about the Conservative leadership election is that it forces members to sort of think, and it makes people think about who they're voting for. And I'm sure we'll get onto this later when we talk about the candidates more specifically. But I think the other effect of this, and I think this is sort of a deliberate act for conference. The fact it spans conference means that conference is very focused on this leadership election. And as you said, there are these like 4 faces as you go in. It's all very like focused on these 4 candidates, right? And that sort of almost gave conference a purpose and forced conference to be a thing looking forwards rather than looking back. If this leadership election wasn't happening, the temptation would be to focus on Sunak and focus on the election defeat. And I suppose the idea is that it was to try and inject some optimism and some hope for the future, and like, these are our 4 candidates. You know, this is what the party is going to be in a year's time. This is how we're going to change the party and hopefully win the next election, rather than being, how did we just lose the last one? Now, obviously, it is debatable about whether that happened.
Yeah.
Obviously, as we said, the mood was still muted when we were there, but I can only imagine that it would be even more muted if you didn't have this leadership election, and it was a focus on Sunak, and it was a focus on the past, and it was a focus on why did we lose the election. You'd have sort of the centrist blaming the right wingers blaming the centrists. So I think in a weird way, it probably actually was for the best that it was so focused on the 4 candidates, but you know, it probably didn't work as well as they hoped it would.
That makes sense. One of the 4 candidates, James Cleverly, Georgina, you had the privilege to interview on, I don't know what day it was.
Monday morning.
Monday.
Tuesday morning. Sorry.
Okay,
yeah.
actually doesn't
Yesterday.
really matter too much, does it? Anyway, but that interview will be coming out on this channel, the podcast channel, on Friday, and we're going to have a little trailer for the interview at the end of this episode, so stick
Which you
around
can
for
watch
that. Yeah,
at the end
it's
of
going
the
to be a
video.
good one. Your debut interview. Yeah. How did it go?
I think it went well enough.
Okay.
It was a very last minute
Yeah.
arrangement because with all these things, you know, especially when you've got 4 leadership contenders and 4 potential sets of comms teams to deal with, you know, we were suggested various people at various times, and it was all a bit up in the air about whether we would even get an interview at all. And then we're very lucky in the end to come through with one for James Cleverly, who, I mean, should we all talk a bit about who we think might end up winning the leadership election?
We should probably say I don't know if we've said who the 4
Yeah, we
candidates
haven't
are.
even mentioned the 4 of them.
I'll let you do that, Ben.
So the 4 remaining candidates are James Cleverly, as we mentioned, Kemi Badenoch, Robert Jenrick, and Tom Tugendhat. Yes, Tom Tugendhat.
Yeah.
So they're the remaining 4, and next week, between the 9th and 10th of October, that gets whittled down to 2. It's a membership vote. Then for the rest of October, it's just MP vote, sorry, for the 9th and 10th. Then for the rest of October, it's a membership vote, so Conservative Party membership vote on it, and then we'll know who the very final, you know, the last remaining person and the winner is on the 2nd of November.
Still a month to go.
A lot of time to go.
It's a long time to go.
Yeah. So who do we
think is going
get
to
the final 2?
get to the final 2, and then who of those 2 do you think will win?
Ben, do you want to go first as the,
I'm
the expert?
I think Kemi Badenoch was the favourite early on, but I think she's lost a lot of momentum for many different reasons, not least some of the comments she's made. I think for that reason, I think it'll be James Cleverly and Robert Jenrick. It'll be the final 2, and I think Cleverly will just about win it. And I think that is because he is, although he's a lot more centrist of the candidates, but I think he's sort of deliberately obfuscated where he lies on that sort of spectrum, and he gets a bit cagey when he's asked where he lies. And I think that is deliberate. I think he's trying to capture a lot of people. I think he's been quite senior within the party, a lot more senior than some of the other figures running, especially people like Tugendhat. I think that'll work really well for him. I think Jenrick is a lot further right, but previously hadn't been, and I wonder whether those on the right will see that as genuine almost. I know he's done this whole thing about the ECHR recently, but a lot of his views have really developed in the last few months or last year, and I just don't know how well that's going to work for him. I think Cleverly, of the 2 of them, will end up winning it.
That's fair. I actually agree on the final 2. I think it'll be Cleverly versus Jenrick, but I find it really hard to get into the mindset of a Conservative Party member, and
so and everyone else.
Yeah. So my instinct is that James Cleverly should win that. I think they might go for Robert Jenrick.
I can see that. That's what I'm saying. I think it will be close. I think Jenrick will win it. Cleverly will win it. Yeah.
What do you think, Georgina?
Interesting. I can see those 2 as well, but just to be different, I'm going to go with, I think, Cleverly versus Badenoch for the last 2. And then I think Cleverly will win it in the end.
Yeah. We should
2 for Cleverly, 1 for Jenrick.
I guess.
In the end.
I don't want to be the Jenrick guy.
Well, you are now.
Something we should...
We might have some merch that you can wear as well.
I'm excited to see it.
We'll get on to that.
Yeah. One thing we should mention is that it's obviously a time for the party to come together.
Yeah.
But leadership elections can be quite feisty and unpleasant for parties, especially previous Conservative Party elections. You've said that, well, earlier you said that there wasn't really that kind of energy, it did feel somewhat united.
Yeah. So as you say, in the previous two sort of recent Conservative leadership elections, it's been feisty to say the least, right? You know, it's just been massive sort of clanging matches between the two big figures, and especially the remaining two. I think there was a concern because this whole leadership election came about after an internal battle within the 1922 committee, and it was eventually decided that it would be a really long one. And those that really didn't want that, and they were very vocal, were saying that this is going to be a show of our disunity. It's going to open up the factions to fight each other. Now, the counter-argument to that, those that wanted this said, no, what it's going to do is force our members to think about who they're going with. Because previously, and they didn't mention names, we all know who they're talking about, they might have been too hasty, chosen a candidate to be what was then Prime Minister, and then, you know, the party would go on to regret it. So that was the idea with the longer lead. And to be fair, and I'm not in any way making any equivalence between any of the current candidates and previous ones, but just in the sense that there was a candidate early on, Badenoch, who probably would have won if it was a short campaign. I don't think she's the favourite anymore. So there has been a real effect on who might win as a result of this really long one. And as you say, you were talking about disunity. Originally, the 1922 committee introduced this like yellow card system. And I thought this would be a really big system where, you know, we all know what yellow cards are. You get two of them, you get a red and they'll be sent off. Not the case. It's just you get a yellow card and that's it. And when asked, what does a yellow card actually mean? The 1922 committee just went, well, you know, it'd be very bad for their campaign. Not effectively suggesting there won't be any sanctions. It's just the media will look at that and go, they're on a yellow card, you shouldn't be voting for them. Yeah. And given the Conservative membership and candidates they've selected before, I don't know how much they're going to care if a candidate gets a yellow card. And I did mock this at the time, but having said that, it seems to have worked because there's been very little sort of blue on blue action in this campaign.
It seems that the major changes in who's the favourite and, you know, who's going up and going down seems to be as a result of the individual candidates' sort of successes and stumbles. Yes. So Kemi Badenoch, for example, just the last few days of conference, she's made a series of comments that have been widely reported and quite heavily criticised. Do
you want to recap some of them?
Yeah, one of them was the thing on maternity pay. I think she said it's too high or too much, and that back when we didn't have maternity pay, people were still having babies, so, you know, it's fine. She also said that something like 5% or 10%?
Said between 5 and 10%.
Of civil servants are bad, but bad to the point that they should be in jail.
She also, though, the thing that was not reported, she said 10% were good.
Oh, okay.
So
she's trying to balance it both ends.
Which is a wild thing to say. I mean, you assume that she doesn't literally mean that, but you can't say that if you're trying to lead a major party.
No, I also just, you know, she wants to be Prime Minister, which heads the civil service. You know, the civil service works for them, for their government. I just feel like branding 10% of your potential employees should be in jail might not be the most.
I think this is the lesson that she has learned from the 14 years in power and the loss of the last election is that the Conservative government was undermined by these kind of people in the civil servants rather than we made mistakes, we being the Conservative Party. And that is quite a big difference between her and someone like James Cleverly, who his speech today, he said, you know, we're sorry for messing up effectively. So Kemi Badenoch, I think in the last few days has really stumbled. But I don't know, I think those are things that would go down very poorly with the electorate, the sort of national electorate, but I don't know if Conservative Party members look at those comments and think, yeah, she's got a point. Or if they'll think, actually, no, that's disqualifying. So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
It is interesting. I think it's more, I think for me, it's just more the momentum. Like, I don't actually necessarily think these are going to hurt her too much. There'll be some people that obviously hit, but amongst the membership, I don't think it will. I think it's just that the momentum for her campaign has dwindled in the last few months. I think that is such a key factor in these sort of things. Whereas, you know, Jenrick and Cleverly have been really on the up. And I don't think they'll take issue with the comments. I think they'll just look at it as she's getting negative headlines and they don't want to associate with her.
Yeah. I think we talked a bit before about the atmosphere at the Conservative Party conference being subdued and muted. I think you could also throw the word uncertain in there. Like, there was a lot of uncertainty around, a lot of tension in the air. Part of the reason I think people were being what seemed to be tight-lipped or hush-hush about who they would be supporting is also because loads of people just don't know. And there would be plenty of delegates there who now, you know, have 4 choices and they still have no idea. because things are changing so quickly just based on these sound bites that will come out. So yeah, there was a lot of kind of just uncertainty around in the air as well.
Interesting. Yeah. I think we should move on to what should be the best half of this episode. The merch, the candidate merch.
Yes.
Do you want to explain why, I don't know, who's giving out merch, why they're giving it out, and then we'll go through it?
Yeah, so we entered the ICC in Birmingham for the big conference centre, saw these big banners, went up the escalators, and then you've got the floor, the Fresh as Fair floor, as Ben describes it.
Yes.
Which was once again very Fresh as Fair-esque.
More Fresh as Fair-esque than the first one, I would argue. Yeah.
Because of the grabbing free stuff element.
Yeah, it's a key element of any Fresh as Fair.
Yeah, and so...
The loot.
So we saw, I think James Cleverley was the first stand that we saw. Yeah. Then Kemi Badenoch's just in the same kind of space in this corridory area. And then we went through to a big room, and then Jenrick and Tugendhat were both inside. And yeah, all these stands were run by young, actually not all young, kind of a range of staffers, people on the teams supporting these people openly. And there was a whole load of stuff on all the tables. So we did a big haul, visited all the stands, and we brought back some incredible items to show you.
Obviously you can't see any of them yet. They're all very well hidden. So I think we'll just go through the bag, and we'll be jumping between candidates. But I think both you, Rory, and people watching at home should keep an eye and just make a mental note of who's handing out what, because we will afterwards, I think, be going through. We're going to
review and rank
who's got the best merch.
Okay.
Obviously, our review of their merch could sink a campaign. Yeah. So you've got to be very. There's a lot at stake here, really, isn't there?
Do you want to start with?
So let's start with a big foam finger.
Yeah. It's Tom.
I'm worried someone's going to clip that.
Yeah.
Just
you're going to be like a young supporters for Tom type.
Yeah.
This is presumably Tom Tugendhat. It doesn't actually say Tugendhat.
But we're getting the impression that he's trying to lean into this, 3 letters. Yeah. I'm just Tom. I'm just your average mate Tom, very friendly letters, very sort of like little Union Jack in the middle. It's good. What I would say actually off the bat with Tom is that my mate Tom from
this is what they want.
Yeah, from my mate Tom. I heard that he was giving out Tugendtan, which was fake tan, and we tried to go and get some so we could review it, but unfortunately it all went out. And we did ask as well, and there were people in front of us who asked, and it was all out.
All gone immediately.
The most sought after thing.
Yeah.
Getting to that time of year though, summer's ending, winter's coming up. We're all going to look a bit pale.
Yeah. Where are you going to get your tan from now?
Well, exactly. There's no Conservative conference to for my annual tan top up. No, it's a shame.
That is Tom's campaign.
It's working.
It's really you can use it for anything. You don't have to.
What can you use it for?
I mean, if you're cheering anyone else that's called Tom on in anything.
I see.
You've already quite limited your anything to. Well, it's interesting you should say that, because I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and their partner's called Tom, and they're away at the minute. And they said after we're done with this, they wanted to wear all the Tom merch when they get back. And I thought that'd be quite a funny bit, actually.
That is good.
I hope doesn't listen to the podcast. It might give away the bit. I don't think he does. Anyway,
that's Tom's foam finger.
Tom's foam finger. There you go. I think the next thing is my sort of read that I'm doing at the minute, the Jenrick Post, my new subscription. Now, Jenrick was doing this every day of the campaign. The campaign, of the conference. He's got 4 editions. Obviously picked this up, thought it's going to be a hefty sort of big read. It's
very flimsy.
Very flimsy. Yeah. Very focused on Robert Jenrick.
If you want a more substantial global view of things and a lot weightier, get our magazine, Too Long News.
Yes.
Use the code podcast. Anyway, sorry.
I think the most interesting thing about this, to be honest, was something I saw on Twitter once we came back, which was that there's a Sudoku puzzle on the back. And yesterday's edition, the Sudoku was all wrong. They had, was it 2 6s in a row?
Yeah.
Which you can't do in Sudoku.
It's a nice touch though, I think, the newspaper.
It's quite a good idea.
It's
very eye-catching.
People are getting into print.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be sad when my Jenrick Post subscription elapses 4 days in.
I don't like that he's called himself Rob in the headline.
He's going for all different.
He needs to decide between Robert, Rob, Bob,
Bobby J,
or Bobby J.
As some caps. We also didn't manage to get one of the caps. They unveiled them after I'd left, at least.
Yeah.
So there were apparently he was doing caps with Bobby J on, but he's going
Yeah.
Robert. He's gone generic in a lot of the other stuff.
I think he needs to stay in one.
Tom is very consistent. Anyway, moving on. We'll go with a different candidate then. We've done 2 so far. Could I interest you in some Tom and M's?
Oh, it's another Tom.
So it's Tom Tugendhat. He's got some M&Ms here, and they've got his face printed on some of them, and on others they've got some of his campaign slogans.
In amazing quality as well.
Yeah.
Very detailed.
Act, lead, and there's something else.
Serve.
That was
act,
it. So I'll give you
Thank
those.
you. I worry he's going to be hit with a cease and desist from the people at M&M. At M&M's.
Well, should we taste test them?
I think we should.
Why do you think he'll be hit with a cease and desist?
These actually have these are actual M&Ms by the looks
They
of
have
it.
little
an M.
M's on them, yeah.
I suppose if he is hit with a cease and desist, he might be one of the first candidates to be brought down by M&M's. Maybe not the last. Maybe this will be a running thing.
All blue and white.
Yeah. So I think they're going for the Union Jack colours.
I would
there.
offer some to Ben, but you can't have them.
I
didn't
can't
want
have
people
them.
to comment thinking that I just skipped over you.
No,
But,
it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
What do you think of the Tom and M's?
They are just M&Ms. There he is. Yeah, he is on there.
It's quite good print quality of him, isn't it?
I'm impressed.
Really nice.
So we'll go with the last one. And I think this one is worth explaining the stall because in all of these other 3, when you go up, it is supermarket sweep. You can get what you want as quick as you can. Nice modern, updated reference there.
I can't do the same.
Who's it hosted by now?
Ryland.
Is it Ryland?
Yeah,
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
He's on everything, he's our Ryland. Anyway, moving on. So all the other ones you can just go up, as I say, like supermarket sweep. But Cleverly Stand had a wheel and they had a lot of really good merch there. They had some battery banks.
Some power packs.
Yeah, for phones. They also had some wallets, which I think they had some like economic message on, some like fiscal
Water bottles. Oh, the message on the water bottle.
So there was on the water bottles, it had like no leaks here written on the water bottles, and I wanted to try and get one for this, but the wheel landed on something else.
And we weren't sure about the messaging. No leaks here. What does that mean?
Yeah, why? Like I get that you want to emphasise that your campaign's not going to leak, but like. Are the other candidates known for that? I don't think they are. Yeah. I was a bit confused by that. But anyway, we didn't get that. We got a T-shirt, and this is it's actually really good quality, I've got to say.
Cleverly for leader.
Really nice.
Yeah,
I really like that.
I've got to say, it's very, very Star Warsy, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the yellow on.
I like the colourway.
Yeah. I think the blue's quite good. I've got to say as well, the thing that frustrates me, and I think we're starting to see that with these 2, is it's like the US state flags, where they're all not deciding on one shade of blue, and they're all different. Just slightly off, different colours of blue, which is sort of annoying me slightly, but
that's probably the point.
Yeah, but like you don't remember any of the candidates like shades.
I remember
of blue.
the colour of that blue bag. This one.
Oh. Yeah, but then the rest of his campaign doesn't go with that blue, so you've just got all these different horrible shades of blue.
You want it consistent branding. Yeah. That's true.
I would have gone with a consistent conservative blue if I was
a deep blue.
If you were running.
If I was running.
What would your design your. You're a Tory leadership candidate. What's on your merch stand?
It's difficult because I'd like to say I'd go with all the expensive items, but do I want to be spending my campaign funds on expensive items for people? I think, to be honest, a lot of edible items people want to associate you with. I wouldn't be going with. I'd be going with sweets. I think a lot of sweets, some nice T-shirts. I'd make sure all my blues are consistent if I'm doing that. Nice consistent branding. Unlike Robert Jenrick, I'd be doing a Tom and I'd be going Ben.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be
Ben
doing,
is a good name.
I wouldn't be doing
3
like
letters,
Bobby or
solid.
Ben,
Yeah. Forwards with Ben. Something like that.
Love it. When are you running?
Well, I can't. I don't want to preempt, Georgina.
Yeah.
What about you?
I like the Tom and M thing where he prints his face on.
Ben
food.
and M.
No. You could do a Ben and Jerry's type thing.
Oh.
But again, that is
you
just
get sued.
Copyright infringement, definitely. But just any kind of food item that you can print your face on, I think that's quite fun. Yeah.
Ed Miliband, did you see at the Labour Party conference last weekend, there were cappuccinos being printed with Ed Miliband.
I did see that.
Yeah, really impressive as well.
That.
Except one of them I saw in the picture got a bit warped. And just
doesn't take much for it to look
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
I imagine that didn't help with his sort of Wallace and Gromit appearance.
There's still some stuff I can see in that bag.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. What else have we got? We'll stay with food items and we'll go with something a bit healthier. It was just an apple with Chemi on.
the worst.
Is there much
of
more
all
to
the
say?
things, I think.
There's not much vision behind it. I mean, I think we asked the gentleman to explain the vision, and he said this was part of Kemi's renewal. You know, apples are fresh there.
Yeah.
Fresh.
Well, do you know what else is fresh? Mints.
They also
Excellent.
say Kemi on, right?
They
Yeah,
do.
they don't say Kemi.
No, they say that they had different ones for like her like,
values.
yeah,
Right.
and we both picked up one that said truth. I've got to say they are covered in this woke packaging that's recyclable. So
But yeah, so
big negative for
Yeah.
woke packaging.
part of the game with the mints was there were 5 columns of the different branded
Yeah.
mints.
Yeah.
There was truth, there was family, there was personal responsibility,
Yeah.
civil something or other, and something else.
Yeah.
And you had to pick
Gonna
the value
tuck
that
into
you.
my personal responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. So we both went
We
for a
both
packet
went
of
for
truth.
Yeah.
truth.
Being
yeah.
journalists,
Yeah,
that's
we
I
thought
like
it was
that.
the most appropriate. Yeah,
But
yeah.
her strategy seems to be pick a food item and put her name on it.
Yeah, pretty boring
Yeah.
in all.
But you know, no one else did an apple, so
No. We've also got, we'll just go back to generic real quick. We've
Yeah.
got a little lanyard. Again, I mean, it's joined generic.
Mixed messaging.
Mixed messaging. He's not got
Yeah.
one clear campaign slogan. He's not even chosen a name that he's going with. So I think negative points for that, really. What else have we got? Oh, badges. We haven't done any badges yet
no.
because they sunk to the bottom of the bag. So consistent. Tom. Just Tom. Union Jack in the middle. Friendly
Can't
letters.
go wrong.
Actually, is it the same colour as his other? I don't know.
I think it might be.
slightly it looks a bit darker.
Yeah, well, something else to say about the Tom. So the Tom merch was all basically angled around his surname Tugendhat.
Oh yes, yeah.
And
yeah.
so we had the Tugen Chat newsletter, which we
Okay.
didn't pick up a copy of, but they had. We had the Tugen
Tan.
Tan, and Tugen Tattoos.
Tugen Tats.
Tugen Tats.
I like
Tugen,
that.
sorry, Tugen
Tugen
Tats.
hats, Tugen
which
tats.
were, what are they called? Temporary
temporary
tattoos,
tattoos, yeah.
which I think I've got in my wallet upstairs.
Oh, we've not got it.
But they were great. There was a lot of fun
Do you think
stuff.
you'll use
Punny.
them or are they? Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
I like that. I like the. I mean, so he's leaning
Yeah.
into
Probably-
the first name Tom, but also the sort of novelty of
Yeah.
second name.
And it's
Tom.
quite an
That's good.
unusual surname, but he's done something fun
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That
And
looks
just-
like a very nice.
So these
quality
are
badge.
Robert Jenrick badges. He's gone for Jenrick there for leader. So he had join Jenrick, Jenrick for leader, join Rob on his newspaper,
Yeah.
and then he had hats
And
that said
Bobby
Bobby
J.
J.
Bobby J.
It's all over the place.
Absolutely inconsistent. Different colours as well to the lanyard. I'm not. It's
Yeah.
not. But this is very. Would you say like American maybe?
Yeah, it does. I mean, and that could be. I mean, the blue makes it seem Democrat, but like it. I don't know what it is. It's
yeah,
the bold text. It's the something.
That's
the
what
something.
struck me when we were walking around the
Yeah.
stores. The first thing when we saw the Genric one, I thought, "Whoa, this looks very Republican."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the bold lettering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. We have got the tattoo here. I think. There we go.
Oh,
Oh,
that's nice.
That's
wonderful.
the Tom tattoo.
Tom. Yeah.
And
Do you
it's
want
a
anyone
little-
want to?
it's a little heart.
Anyone want to put that on?
We
them
could do
today?
it right now, live on podcast, but we
Do
don't
you-
have any water.
No, I was going to say you need some
Yeah.
water, don't you?
yeah.
Well, we've got
Only
that
had a
anyway.
James Cleverly no leaks water bottle.
No, it's a shame. I think
Yeah.
I think that is all of it, other than the bag itself, which is yet another shade of blue
For Jen.
for Jenrick. And what's he gone with here? He's gone Jenrick.
Genric for leader.
Oh, so there is some consistency with
Yeah.
a badge, but again, totally different colours.
Yeah, that's a pretty good haul.
Yeah.
So what are your main takeaways, Rory, after seeing them all for the first time?
I think, well, it seems like Robert Jenrick was just handing out everything to everyone. I really like what the Tom stuff that you got,
Yeah,
especially the Tom and M's. Big fan of those. I think the edible stuff does work well.
yeah.
Edible, by edible, I mean,
Apples?
I mean sweets. I just think an apple is, you want
Boring.
something you can tuck
Yeah,
into.
it's
You
a
don't
bit-
want to carry an apple core.
It's
Flat,
like on
wasn't it?
Halloween when people hand out like an apple. It's like I get what you're going with, but it's just not
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Like you don't.
What you said about James Cleverly's items, they sounded like the best, but hard to get.
Yeah, exclusive. And like maybe that's the. You know, you want to go back to his store to
Yeah.
try and win better merch. Maybe
Yeah.
that there is a logic there.
Also very practical, but not that fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where are we ranked? Because I think surely we're all agreed on the winner here, right?
I think I'd.
Are we?
In terms of merch.
Well, should
Gotta
we?
be.
How? Okay, let's let Rory.
I mean, based on what I've seen.
Right.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, we've
Based on
seen
what
them.
I've seen, I'm putting Tom at the top, Tom Tugendhat.
I would agree with this so far.
And then probably Cleverly, just based on what I've heard about his stuff. And the shirt was all right.
Mm.
Yeah. Then Robert Jenrick, because volume. you know, you can't go wrong if you're just throwing so much out. And then I'm
But
afraid Kemi is at
inconsistency,
the bottom.
yeah. I think we'd agree with that ranking.
I completely agree with that ranking. I think Tom is the best. Cleverly would
In terms of merch, once again.
Yeah,
sorry,
this
in terms of
we're
merch,
not ranking
Cleverly-
candidates. This is
yeah,
just the merch.
on the match.
Yeah.
I think Cleverly would have had could have maybe made the top spot if he made his merch more available. And then I agree with the other two. I think Kemi was a little bit lacking in creativity, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And the woke packaging really knocks it down. It's,
yeah. But it's unlikely, would you say, to have an impact on the leadership?
Well, we've spoken about it on the podcast, so I think I think the
gonna
winners are
send
going to
ripples.
happen in that order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
I think we'll leave it there. But stick around to the very end because we have got the trailer for the James Cleverly interview. And
Did you ask him about why he didn't make his merch more available?
Sorry, Ben. No, I would have done if you'd pinged me.
What's the point?
hard-hitting questions. Let us know in the comments which merch you like the best as well. And who,
Yes.
who would you back entirely based on merch?
Yeah.
Forget politics, just the merch. And obviously, toolong.news, code podcast. It would really help the podcast channel.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rory.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you for joining me.
And thanks for watching.
Yeah. We'll leave it
Wow.
at that.
What a thankful ending.
Thank you very much, James Cleverly, Shadow Home Secretary and one of the 4 remaining Conservative leadership contenders. How would you restore trust among young voters within the Conservatives?
I'm not going to try and align myself to any bit of the party. What we shouldn't do is this constant infighting.
How much of a priority for you is young people's livelihoods?
Want to be positive, want to be optimistic, want to make sure that throughout your life, the Conservative Party gives you genuine choice and genuine options.
What would your approach be towards Israel's wars in both Gaza and now also Lebanon?